Hey, you are now listening to the Lucid Rain podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the BEK phenomenon, some eyewitness accounts, what we would do in a similar situation, and just encounters and all of it in general. Maybe some mythology, what we think they could possibly be, and without further ado, let's just get right into it.
Yeah, so if you don't know what BEKs are, they're basically, well, that stands for Black Eyed Kids. And we don't know exactly what they are or if they're real, but basically they they ask to either get in your house or your car, or just they want to be let in somewhere. And it's basically always at nighttime. I've never heard an account that was in the daytime, and there's usually two of them. There's not usually just like one kid. There's usually two of them at nighttime, and they just want to be let in for whatever reason. No one really knows why. And I don't know, like, the first thing that comes to my mind is that they're just like aliens trying to uh, Im- trying to act like they're children, because from what I hear, they they're really mechanical and like really awkward, and they just don't seem like children. They don't seem like adults either, but they just don't act how a child would, supposedly.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on what their motives are. I guess we could get into a couple stories, and that might help paint a better picture, and maybe we can elaborate a little better after we tell a couple stories.
Yeah,
Do
so
you want me to start, or you got one ready?
I can tell one. So I found it weird that never hear stories about people actually letting them in, and I was like, that's kind of
Yeah,
weird,
that,
right? But
that's what I was kind of like wanting to get into after we told some stories and be
oh
like,
yeah,
if you notice, none of them say that. That's kind of fucked, isn't it? My
yeah.
bad, dude.
I mean, you could say dead men tell no tales, but I don't know what that is. But I have one story of people actually letting them in, and in this story, it was a husband and his wife, and I forget what they wanted. Like, I think maybe they were just lost. I don't know what they wanted, but they let them in. They asked to come in. They let them in. They didn't see their eyes until they were already inside. I don't know how that happens, but that's what happened apparently. And they gave them they gave them tea, and like just kind of comforted them, let them sit down, and they were just kind of chilling in their house. And then they noticed their eyes, and then they were like, "That's really weird. What is up with them?" And apparently the husband and the wife, I don't remember who said it, but one of them was like, maybe they just have a disease or something. I was just like, that doesn't exist, but whatever, okay. And that was his first thought. And apparently they left, so they didn't hurt them, they didn't do anything to them. But after they left, so the husband got a nosebleed, which I would think I was telling you about this earlier. He got a nosebleed, and then he got skin cancer. Like, not even like he was diagnosed with skin cancer like maybe a week later. And one of their animals, like their cat or something, got like internal bleeding and died. So and none of this happened until they let those kids in. So it's like, I don't know how true it is, but that would suggest that they have some sort of like aura to them that is dangerous.
Yeah, I've heard something about that.
That's the only
So
story
I
I can
think
think of
that
where they let them in. So
I don't know. I've heard a couple stories that are similar, that people just feeling nauseous
yeah, I've heard that too.
and just having like overwhelming feelings of like discomfort.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it ever really goes past that.
There was another story about this woman who basically went into a panic for like no reason. Like, she saw the kids walking up to her car or something like that, and it was nighttime, so I guess you could be like, oh, maybe these people look shady or whatever. I don't know. And she got in her car. She was walking into her house, I think, to begin with, but something made her look at those kids and panic and turn around and get right back in her car for some reason. As if she saw something like scary or something frightening. So, and then they were trying to get into her car. So, and they were, and apparently, sorry, go ahead.
I've never heard any stories of them actually being legitimately forceful, forcing their way into something. I've heard of them being somewhat aggressive, but
like
never, never forceful or even any physical, making you feel like you're in any physical harm or physical danger.
Yeah,
I haven't heard anything like that.
I didn't hear anything about that either. I think they do get upset when you don't let them in. Like, apparently they've gotten pretty aggressive and they start demanding you let them in, like not even asking anymore. So I've heard that quite a few times. And apparently they put you in kind of a, some people have reported they've been put in kind of a trance, like they couldn't even move. You could say that's just them being scared, but some of them said felt kind of unnatural, that they just could not do anything besides sit there and talk to the kids. I don't know. Everything seems to suggest that they have they have an effect on you just by being near you.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's kind of like you said. I have a couple stories. One I heard on Jim Harold's Campfire, and it was a guy saying, I guess a couple of them went up to his apartment building, and it was a late night. He was going to head work the next day, and he lives in a college town, so he thought maybe it was some drunk college kids, and it was two actual kids, and he was just filled with dread. He said no. He said he ignored it, and then it just kept happening. So I finally answered the door and just was like, oh, fuck. And he told them no. He called the police. The police laughed at him. And he said that it happened a couple more times, and he tried not talking about it anymore just because he was afraid that if he talked about it, it would happen. So
that sucks.
Pretty much, I haven't heard any stories where these encounters go well or have really anything positive going on. Which, I don't know. I'm sure if we interviewed 1,000 people that have had this type of encounter, I'm sure at least one of them has to be positive.
I don't know. If they're just I mean, that's the thing, is you don't know if they have negative intentions or not. You don't know what their intentions are. But the fact that you don't hear any stories about people letting them in, and the one story you do hear about them letting them in is a negative story.
So what exactly do you remember that story in pretty vivid detail? What exactly did they do when they went in?
I think they just sat on their couch. I don't think they necessarily did anything. And they got the.
Did they use their phone or?
No, I don't think so. I think they literally just kind of sat there. I think they talked to them. I don't remember what they said necessarily, but they got them tea, and I think they just left eventually. They were just I don't know what they said. Damn, I should have looked at it again before we did this, but I think they said their parents were here or something like that, and then they just left, something weird like that. And then that's when all that horrible stuff happened to that couple.
One thing I'm kind of interested in, and the fact I've noticed about a lot of them, is they have very limited responses. It's almost like they're programmed to have certain responses, and when you ask them questions, they just don't understand what you're saying necessarily. So they kind of just won't respond to you. And it's maybe that it would make sense if maybe they're I guess what we would consider a dog. They're an alien dog essentially.
Right.
They're intelligent but not intelligent enough to hold a conversation or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something I've gathered from all this. They're not very intelligent, I don't think. At least not in a. They're not very cultured, I guess. Like, they don't really know how, like, humanity works, I guess. That's what it seems like. Really odd. And
Yeah,
apparently, for
I
some
mean, it
reason,
makes.
they're.
Sorry, go ahead.
And say apparently for some reason they're spotted in England a lot, like more than any other place in the world. I don't know why or what that has to do with it, but apparently that's a thing.
Yeah, I think it's maybe if you look into it, it it would make sense that maybe there's something else. Just because the fact that they're like unresponsive to pretty much everything you say to them, I think that's kind of weird.
Yeah, that is really weird. Like, I mean, it makes sense that if there's not some sort of surface level thing going on, it makes sense that people would feel dread when talking to them. Besides their eyes, if you see someone acting weird like that, it would probably freak you out no matter what, right? Like,
Yeah, well, let's make a comparison to our the real world and shit that you are likely to encounter. If you see someone strung out and walking down the street and you have to cross paths with them, the whole time you're just crossing your fingers saying, I hope they don't talk to me. I hope that I
yeah,
don't have to interact with them. And the feeling of someone walking past you and you're just looking at them like this is not someone I want to talk to, it fills you with unease and dread. Like
yeah,
it
for sure.
really does. So think about that. That's just uncomfortable situations. I feel like you're filled with unease or dread anytime someone knocks on your door. Uh, Pretty much anytime because it's pretty rare that someone like I feel like even for most people, it's rare to have someone knock on your door. Like that's not something that happens every day.
Yeah, right. I mean, if anything, people
And
use a doorbell.
yeah, or people will call you, hey, I'm outside, text you, I'm on my way,
Right.
shit like that, rather than knocking, especially at night. Like, if someone's coming out of your house at night,
Yeah, that's always
past
weird.
like 11 o'clock, they're pretty much gonna give you a heads up and let you know
Yeah,
to start
right.
coming, just out of like common courtesy. At least
It
I would think.
Yeah, to my knowledge, it's always at night. I haven't heard a story there where it was like broad daylight and these kids came up to someone. So I mean, in a way, they parallel vampires in more than one way, which is kind of odd. I think that's just a coincidence, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good comparison. The fact that they're not allowed in unless you invite them in.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like that's kind of branching off into something completely different that has its own set of rules and problems. And I think a problem with folklore in general is it's a product of the time. So like I don't know. One thing that you hear with like vampires, you think garlic crosses holy water. I haven't heard any of those things brought up with these guys at all.
Oh yeah. Yeah, not at all. And like the fact that there's always two of them. At least, I mean, maybe you've heard a story where there was just one, but like there's usually two of them. One's usually a little older than the other. So apparently, so that's pretty weird too. And some of these stories date back before, before the internet, before creepypastas, like before any of
Yeah.
that. So I
To
think some
to
people aren't
bring it
just
up,
making shit up.
there's stories that go back from the 1700s and even before that.
Yeah, so I feel like if something sticks around like that, uh, there may be some truth to it, possibly. And the thing is, like, say they didn't have black eyes, or you didn't see their black eyes, and say if a kid needs, a young kid needs your help, I don't know. I might let them in. I would think about it at the very least. It's a kid. How a kid can't overpower
Yeah,
you, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, well, if a kid is, here's the thing. I feel like if a kid needs help, They're gonna be crying. They're gonna be like distraught and
That's
distressed.
true. Yeah.
They're not gonna just be monotone staring through you.
Yeah.
Can I use your phone? They're gonna be like, crying, just not, like they're probably lost.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like most kids wouldn't really knock on someone's door anyways, even if they are lost. They might. Yeah, I mean, maybe if they're a little older. I don't know. I'm not sure, but at the very least, like, I would think about letting them in, possibly. But yeah, if they are acting robotic and they're just being weird, and it's like, sorry, kid, no, you're creepy, and I'm not letting you in. I'm sorry. Not to mention you have black eyes.
Yeah, I feel like that's. I don't know why. That seems like something that could be easily changed, especially if they're able to shapeshift. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to change their eyes pretty easily. I feel like that'd be one of the easiest things because we can literally change our eyes. Like, all you have to do is put a covering over them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that though, because I've heard stories where they had normal eyes and they didn't let them in, and when they got upset and demanded to be let in, then their eyes would turn black. I've heard that was one of the stories I heard. So why would it be that some of them can do that and some can't? That doesn't add up.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's almost as if like their quote unquote disguise wore off or something, or maybe when they get angry, it's just like they don't hide it anymore. I don't know. Really strange. And to be honest, that makes it creepier to me when if they had normal eyes, but they just change when they're, I don't know, emotionally stressed or something. Like, I feel like that's creepier because then there's no indicator besides their behavior that they're not of this world. So your chances of trusting them is higher because obviously you see a kid with black eyes, you're not gonna let them in. So
yeah. So, to bring it a blast of the past all the way to the Christian Night podcast, we talked. This is one of our first episode topics, and one thing that I was actually always worried about when this is like, say it's one of our parents answering the door, because I lived with my parents at the time that we first started podcasting. Say your mom answers the door. She's thinking, oh, it's a little kid. A parent's not gonna let a little kid stay outside. More than likely.
yeah, right.
Like, the fact is, it scares me. Or say you have like a 5-year-old, or maybe not 5, because a 5-year-old wouldn't be answering the door. But like you have like an 8 or 9-year-old answering the door, and they don't know any better, and they just say, "Yeah, you can come in." Like if someone isn't weary of strangers, or someone's like, "Oh, they're just kids," and doesn't know the phenomenon, and
right.
isn't really gonna pay attention to mannerisms and shit like that, like that could be sort of a problem, and that could be sort of scary. Like,
that is scary.
because that was always something that I thought about. Like, what if it's someone who doesn't know what's going on, and all of a sudden they're already in, and that's a terrifying thought. If you ask me.
And then it's like, who knows what happens at that point? Because some parents, they just see a kid in need of help. I guess like they don't see the mechanical mannerisms and them being weird. How people don't notice black eyes, that I don't understand. I don't know how that goes over people's heads, like they just don't notice that. I've heard more than one story where they say they didn't notice their black eyes until later. I don't see how that happens, because when you're talking to a human being, the first thing you look at is their face. So I don't know how that could go unnoticed.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. From what I've heard, sometimes if it's teenagers, they like have hoodies. If it's younger kids, they have like older clothes, like vintage clothes.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
But
sometimes they'll have like old.
If you're wearing if you're wearing a hoodie and you have your face down, and you're that kind of seems like a kid's behavior, you know, like kind of nervous,
Yeah.
head down,
Yeah, I
maybe
guess so.
playing. But I don't know. It seems like it's kind of I don't know. One thing that I'll say about this, the fact that there's so many accounts and a lot of them are pretty similar.
Right. Yeah, they are.
So you always have the more stories there are, the more accounts, the more people are probably gonna have similar stories. But I feel like you could also, it's kind of like going to the same thing with the UFO phenomenon.
Yeah.
If you see something, you know, there's a pretty good chance that if you see it, it probably is something similar most of the time. So it makes sense that it would be similar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. I don't
So
know. I
it
always.
kind of goes either way with that.
Yeah. I always thought it was really weird about the stories where it's like they're wearing outdated clothing, like as if they're from like 100 years prior. Like, what is up with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know. I feel like
It's almost as if they're imitating something that they're not fully aware of. Like they couldn't keep up with how the times have changed or something like that. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I've kind of heard a bunch of different accounts where people are like making that comparison. I don't really know. Yeah. One thing that I'm thinking is maybe they're really not trying that hard
To get in people's houses.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe
That's
it's
true.
more
Yeah,
like
that's
a
one thing.
maybe it's more like a test thing, and maybe it's more like see what humans do under stress. Like,
That's true. That's one way to look at it. Who knows? I
I mean,
guess.
I've never really heard anyone bring up that point. Like, if you wanted to kind of test someone, you would probably try and make the situation as uncomfortable as possible. So it's pretty uncomfortable to have a kid in 1920s clothing. Yeah, just kind of walking around, knocking on people's doors with all blacked out eyes and looking unnatural and acting unnatural. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything seems to point toward them being like just a bad imitation. Because I heard like people say like, I'm calling the police. You better leave or the police will come. They're not phased by it at all. I've heard one story that said he had a gun or something like that. Obviously he's not going to shoot a child, right? It's just a threat. But he was threatening this kid. I'll call the police. I have a gun. Leave now. Not phased by anything. They don't care. It's as if they don't know what it means. Because I feel like if they knew what it meant, they would leave. But they don't.
Yeah, that kind of falls in line with what I was suggesting too, though. I mean, if you're trying to make someone uncomfortable and cause stress, that's probably your best bet is just being absolutely unresponsive.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Kind of crazy, and yeah, it's kind of like how like something that dogs do that kind of creeps you out. Like when you're talking to a dog or something, and then they just slightly tilt their head,
Yeah.
and it's like, dude, I mean, when people do that, it's creepy as fuck too. But like, that's kind of like the vibes that I get from it. It's just like unnatural and just kind of naturally something to make your stomach turn.
Yeah, right. Really creepy.
And,
just the thought of it is creepy. Just some being that's just trying its hardest to be like you, and it's like not working. It's like that uncanny valley type of shit. Really creepy.
Yeah. One thing that I can say about that is, as far as stories go, like I kind of said earlier, a lot of them are very similar, and they go back for a long time. So I think people are seeing something.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
Too.
People have made religious comparisons, calling them demons. I don't necessarily like
yeah, people say that.
believe that or see that.
Yeah, I
I
never really
usually
believed
disagree
stuff
with
like
shit
that.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. People say vampires. Obviously, we said I probably think they're aliens of some sort.
Yeah, that's my thought, is that they're aliens. That I think that's the best explanation, just because they act alien. Like, I don't know. According to stories. And I just wanted to say, I do have a story of what I thought was a black-eyed kid, but I ultimately don't think it was a black-eyed kid, but I'm gonna tell the story anyway. So, this wasn't a kid. This was like a teenager slash like, what do you call it? Adolescent, I guess. And so it was a girl, and she was by herself. It wasn't two of them like you usually hear. And this was in school. So this was like a public ass place. And I saw this girl with completely black eyes. I don't know why my first thought wasn't that she just had like contacts in, black contacts. That wasn't my first thought. My first thought, I was super tired and shit though. So I don't know. I just looked at her, was freaked out, and she actually dropped like a pencil case or something like that. I was in line with her going into a classroom for like the first time, and or maybe second time or something. It was one of the first times going in there, and she dropped something. I picked it up for her. Didn't notice her eyes at first. Gave it to her. She looked at me, and I kind of recoiled back for a second because it was just freaky, and that was kind of the end of that encounter. But we walked into the classroom, and the weird thing is, I don't remember what happened after that, because you would think I would be looking at her when I was in the class. I don't remember any of that. I don't even remember sitting down and like looking at her or anything like that. It didn't seem like anyone else noticed her eyes. Like, I don't know. It's a really weird situation. I think she had contacts in, but the fact that I have a big memory gap there is really kind of weird. So I don't know what that was, but it freaked me out regardless. Whether she was a a black-eyed kid or not, it was still pretty creepy to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard that story a couple times, but it is
Yeah.
weird. I don't necessarily know if maybe you're like. I remember you telling me about it like somewhat around the time it happened. I feel like, and you said it pretty much the same way. So I'm not gonna sit there and say you didn't see it, but yeah,
Granted, I was
it's it's
extremely
weird.
tired. So maybe that was some weird kind of, that wouldn't be the first time I saw something that wasn't completely there, but I don't know. I really
Yeah,
have no
that
idea.
kind of goes. It kind of goes with the question: are there any reports of seeing them in any other context, like not bothering you? Like I know in shows like Supernatural, the all black eyes is like demon possession. I don't know if that's anywhere else like that. People kind of associate those together, or how that shit works, and kind of like the general consensus on that. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I don't I don't know. Like, I don't know if people have ever seen like just someone in passing, like, oh, that person has black eyes. Like, I don't know if that's ever happened. I've never heard about that before. I mean, even the girl I saw, no one seemed to take notice of her. It was as if she wasn't even there. Well, not that she wasn't there, but it was as if her eyes weren't black, as if I was the only one who saw her eyes that way. Like, I felt like that was weird. So maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's something like with the person they target sees them a certain way or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, as well, hiding eyes is literally as simple as putting sunglasses on.
Yeah, it is.
Just want to point that out. And the fact is, I think we kind of like naturally glance over facial features as kind of people. So the chance that somebody could have the weirdest colored eyes. someone could have fucking purple eyes. Shout out to Abe. But you know, there's a pretty decent chance I feel like you wouldn't even notice just because I don't know. Especially if you're in a area that's just like really busy and a lot of bullshit.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're probably
Yeah, I mean you wouldn't notice, but like all black eyes is kind of different from that though, because that's literally like such a contrast. It's like it's just weird to see. And I looked it up a long time ago, and I'm talking about years ago, like if there was a condition or disease where your eyes can be like that, and I didn't find anything. So I don't I don't think that's on the table either.
yeah. Would you want to talk about what you might do in a situation where if you were essentially thrust into that?
Like if they were at my door.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I basically just having the knowledge I do, I'd I'd be terrified. I mean, first of all, I don't have a peephole on my door, so if I saw them, they would probably see me too if they were looking at my door, and that's like my first thing would be to ignore them, and they would probably get angry if they saw me and I saw them, noticed they had black eyes, and I was like, oh shit, I'm not answering that, and then I just left. They'd probably get mad and then start knocking or knocking hard or something like that. So that's probably what would happen with me. I kind of wish I had a peephole if for something like that to happen, but like I don't. If I
Yeah,
see
I mean
them, they see me.
that's a pretty easy fix, dude. You literally just figure out how big a peephole would be. You take a drill that size, drill two, and then you put the peephole in one side, the other side, and then close it in. Tighten it. Like it's pretty simple to get one.
Yeah, it's not hard to install a peephole, I guess. I just like never did. We never even thought about it. Or you know, I could tint the glass on my front door. I could do that too. Actually, it used to be tinted, but it came off like years ago. So that's
yeah,
a fix.
I mean, at least you have windows that you can see anyway, so that's
right.
that's not bad. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
one thing if you have a door that's just solid wood and you can't see anything past it. That kind of would suck.
Yeah, that would be a problem. Cause then you have to open the door to see who it is. Well, what would you do in that situation?
I would just say, all right, you're not coming in, leave. And the more they did, the more and more they did it, I'd either ignore it or I would just say, leave, 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 leave. And I'd probably do what anyone else do, and I would just, depending on what it is, I might just call someone and be like, look, come check this shit out, dude. And, yeah.
I mean, you could always call the police and be like, there's 2 lost kids at my door, and they're trying to get in. And I'm sure they would come immediately.
Yeah, I would just, that's a good point. I could probably say, yeah, there's two kids, they're kind of suspicious, they seem like they don't live in the area and they don't know where they are. I don't know how they got like I say, I live in an apartment and I feel like I've seen everyone that lives in here. I don't recognize these kids. Maybe you might want to come and get them so they don't hurt themselves or, you know, fuck around in the wrong spot and get hurt, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think I'd handle it. I do genuinely hope I don't have to ever cross that road.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know why. I just have this thought that once you're you know, quote unquote targeted by them, they're gonna come back like that you said in that one story. I just feel like they're gonna come back again first and just keep trying. But I guess that's unrealistic because I mean, it's not like you're gonna change your mind, right? So why would they even try again, the same person?
Yeah, I guess it boils down to what are the motives, what's the point, and like just if we just continue with like that thought process, why, who, what, where, when, like
Yeah,
we
I
don't
think
really
that's the
have any
creepiest thing.
information.
That's the creepiest thing about it is we don't know what their motive is. All we have to
Yeah,
go off of is one story, which may not even be true, of where they
yeah,
left them
I
in
don't
and they
know.
weren't harmful.
It feels like it could go either way with it, but who knows? I would say I wouldn't let strangers into my home, regardless of who they are.
Yeah, right.
You know,
A stranger's a
so
stranger.
yeah, I don't think it would change.
But yeah, if you have any BEK stories and you feel like sharing, let us know. I would gladly read them. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.